Folks, welcome back. Still nothing new to report on the search for the missing plane. As I've indicated earlier in the show, last night the Prime Minister of Australia held a press conference and said that radar that they had received picked up what looked like a possible field of debris, possibly from a plane, one piece 75 feet in mass, and so they're trying to get out there. It's about 1,500 miles off the coast of Australia. They're trying to get out there. They're trying to see what is what, but it's getting light there now, so I'm sure the search will resume. The weather was prohibitive yesterday, but hopefully that will be remedied. And we're going to be speaking very shortly here to Michael Barone to talk a little politics and see what the landscape is. But I want to let you hear. Yesterday we played you in one of my Give Me Five segments, Barack Obama making his NCAA tournament picks. Of course, he has to do that every year on ESPN. Well, this morning, as you might imagine, the media was just in love with the fact that the president made his picks yet again, and here's a little sampling of it.
And finally, the bracketologist-in-chief is at it again. President Obama, as he does every March, making his predictions as to the madness with ESPN's Andy Katz. As the president was making his picks for the men's tournament, they had some fun with the possibility of perhaps the president winning Warren Buffett's billion-dollar perfect bracket challenge.
Oh.
If you were to win that, what would you do with $1 billion?
You know, I'm sure somebody would ask me to pay down more of the federal debt. Okay. Michelle might want a few shoes.
Okay.
Smart man. Constituents and wife. Keep them all happy.
Smart man. What a president. The bracketologist, Barackatologist, whatever they're calling him, I don't even know. Barack Obama. I mean, how can what would it be if March Madness without Barack Obama making his picks? He's been right once. He was right in 09. He was not right in 10, 11, 12, 13, and he picked Michigan State. So I urge you all to pick Louisville, if you want to go by that. Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up from the control room somewhere. I see the thumbs up. Yeah, look, there's nothing wrong with him doing that. It's just that it's so staged. And yesterday, if you saw the Gimme Five segment, you understand that this man doesn't know much about sports. This man who pretends to be a Chicago White Sox fan, lifelong fan, he talked about going to the old Kaminsky Field to watch the White Sox. If you've been there once, if you ever rooted for the White Sox, you know they played at Comiskey Park, not Kaminsky Field. It's just ridiculous. He called the Miami Heat the Miami Heats. He didn't know who Joe Robbie's son, he called him Roby. When the Miami Dolphins came to town from the undefeated Dolphins team was represented. It just goes on and on and on. He couldn't name a Chicago White Sox player when he was asked to in the Washington Nationals broadcast booth during one opening day after he threw out the first pitch and bounced the ball to home plate. I mean, give me a break. Really. Enough with the charade. It's like when Hillary said she grew up a big Yankee fan and White Sox fan. She listened to the Cubs. She listened to the Cubs during the day, then watched the Yankees at night. Really? On what? Cable or satellite when she was a little girl? Please give me a break with these people. All right, folks, I want you to watch this as we head into the interview with the great Michael Barone. You're going to want to see this. I think you'll find it interesting. Give a watch.
I am a conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a social conservative. I think we've seen that in order for the Republican Party to succeed, we need to be a big tent. We need to embrace American values that have been present in our country, have been present in every small town, every small business, every family for centuries.
Okay, that's Ted Cruz. He was actually responding to a question about something Rand Paul had said, who which basically was, Republicans need to kind of tone it down on social issues. So Cruz taking the other point of view. Joining us now is our friend, the one and only Michael Barone. You know him, you love him. And Michael, welcome to the show, sir, the chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Hello.
Hello, good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you. Good to see you pick up the phone when you hear from us.
Yes, we're always happy to talk to
I
you.
appreciate it. Me too. Okay, so before we get to Cruz and all that, I want to talk about a piece that you wrote, and that is Democratic strategists in 2014 are like French generals in 1940. It was a brilliant analysis of the two situations.
Well, that I was making reference to General Maurice Gamelin on May 15th, 1940, 5 days after the German troops invaded France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, and they had one of those what I call two-word moments, of which I'll repeat only the first word, which is "oh." The troops were cut off, the reserves were non-present, there was nothing stopping the Germans. They had broken through in the Ardennes Mountains, and nothing stopping them on their way to English Channel and Paris. And I think that's, keeping in mind that military and political analogies are always inexact, and keeping in mind that, nobody in American politics remotely resembles the Nazis. I think Democrats on the Obamacare issue, Democratic candidates this fall, are finding themselves in the same position, which there's no good alternatives. You can't robustly defend a law that's only got 38% support in any kind of constituency that's not overwhelmingly Democratic. And when you say, well, we'll fix it, there may be some better answers than the candidate in Florida 13 gave, but the fact is that doesn't seem to be a winning strategy either. Ignoring it and hoping it will go away is sort of like standing in the Crimea and saying, well, let's just ignore the Russian troops.
So they have to do, you say they have to come up with a plan? I mean, but of course it'll be a plan that would never get anywhere outside of the House.
Well, you're talking about Republican plans there?
Yeah, if the Republicans...
Democrats can say, here's some ways to fix the bill. I would do this. I would do this differently. And of course, President Obama is, I think, lawlessly changing the act multiple times,
right.
More than 24. But the fact is that none of these sound particularly persuasive, and it does not seem to be a winning tactic. It's defensive. Back in my liberal days, I used to be a Democratic campaign consultant, and trying to put that hat on again and think of how I would advise Democratic clients in seriously contested races, I think the best I could come up with is try somehow to change the subject.
Yeah, well, Nancy Pelosi certainly could use your advice. So could Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Harry Reid, because those three leaders keep saying that we're proud, and they're all proud that they voted for it, and we're going to run on it and not against it, and America loves it. And the president got reinforced by Ellen yesterday, who said that we're all thankful for Obamacare. So I mean, maybe they're living in this delusional world.
Well, they're living in a world. Nancy Pelosi's district voted, I think, 82% for Barack Obama. Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district, about 62% for Barack Obama. Heaven knows what the precincts that Ellen DeGeneres lives in Hollywood, how they voted. Probably somewhere in between those two numbers. In those precincts, that's probably good advice. You've got, your Democratic voters mostly say they support Obamacare. When you are looking at constituencies that are seriously contested, like the Senate races where Democrats are trying to hold on in 7 states that voted for Mitt Romney, and in 5 to 7 other states that were target states, close states in the presidential election of 2012, that's not such good advice.
All right, let's talk about what we heard from Ted Cruz, and of course this goes beyond the 2014 elections and targets 2016, with everybody thinking Cruz will be a presidential contender and Rand Paul will be a presidential contender, and and then you got Huckabee and Christie and all that. So when it comes to social issues, see, I'm of the thought that and the belief that if you could combat the media, then you should have no fear. If you could take them on and cite the facts and the statistics, because the media will have you believe that, if you don't believe the grass is blue and the sky is green, there's something wrong with you. Because on issues like right to life and marriage and all that, most people agree to one extent or another with Republicans, yet they run away from those issues. So do you believe that that in order to get the base out to vote, which lots of whom, and you know better than I, stayed home with McCain and with Romney, that you're going to need a strong social conservative when it comes to 2016?
Well, it depends on the issue and it depends on the constituency. One of the things I've been focusing on is the so-called millennial generation, the under 30s, because they present some interesting issues, in some cases challenges for Republicans. On the abortion issue, they are, if anything, as much in favor of restrictions on abortion, not abolishing it, but restrictions, as the older age groups, even a little more so. They're the sonogram generation. The idea that there's a baby involved is not a foreign idea to them. On the other hand, same-sex marriage, you see, 61% of young Republicans are in favor of same-sex marriage. You're looking at elderly Republicans, you've got about 61% against. That's an issue that divides the Republican coalition, whereas a large majority of the Democratic coalition, particularly since even among black voters, used to be against same-sex marriage after President Obama's endorsement of it. The Democratic bloc is more united. So that's perilous ground for Republicans, and I think putting my campaign consultant hat on this time from the Republican side, I would say the first thing you want to do is show respect for everybody who has strong views on this issue.
No, I couldn't. Obviously, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you have to do everything respectfully and explain.
And I think make the point that the large majority of people on both sides of this same-sex marriage issue take the position they do because they think it would be good for individuals and good for society. They disagree on what would be good for them, but I don't think people are taking this view either for or against this proposition out of hatred, either hatred for gay people or hatred for the institutions of marriage. You can find fringe groups that feel that way. That's not the great majority.
You wrote a piece at the Washington Examiner talking about a book written by Gregory Clark, a British-born economist at the University of California, Davis, and the book is The Sun Also Rises, Surnames and History of Social Mobility. And you asked the question at the beginning, here's one school of thought: America used to be a land with great upward social mobility, but isn't anymore. Another is America never was a land with great upward social mobility. In his book, Gregory Clark, I think, accepts the latter rather than the former. So we got about a minute and a half left. Talk about that and what you see as the truth and the solution in your point of view.
Well, Gregory Clark makes the point that he uses surname, last name analysis to see, to what extent certain groups of people are overrepresented in elite institutions. And you can go back to the 13th century at Oxford and Cambridge, England, at the British Parliament, and so forth. And he finds that in fact, these groups tend to be overrepresented. They become less overrepresented over time, but even centuries later they are. And although he doesn't come down firmly on this, he doesn't have any other explanation except a certain amount of genetic inheritance of abilities that tend to lead to these results. Does that mean that we are prisoners of our genes, prisoners of fate? No. Individuals can succeed, and Abraham Lincoln, with virtually zero formal education, born in poverty, can become president. But as a statistical probability, people like that don't usually achieve that kind of upward mobility. We had a lot of upward mobility when we get immigration of high-skilled people. We saw it spectacularly a century ago with the experience of Eastern European Jews.
We're running out of time here, Michael, but it's a fascinating subject, and we'll talk more about it. Michael Barone, senior political analyst for the Washington Examiner, co-author of the Almanac of American Politics, and contributor to Fox News. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Nice talking to Michael Barone. When we come back, we turn our attention to Obamacare on the Steve Malzberg Show.
The Steve Malzberg Show.